Hi everybody! No matter if you're in Web 2 or Web 3, as you scale your product to cater to thousands of users, you are faced with one of the most common challenges for technology startups: the challenge of scaling your engineering team fast. Scaling is not just about rapidly hiring people, it is about building resilient systems and effective team structures that will help the talent you hire thrive and deliver outstanding results. Put a brilliant person in the wrong environment and you can expect nothing but frustration and disappointment. How to effectively scale an engineering team is one of the most discussed topics in the tech world. To help you find some of the answers, I spoke with Alex Rashkov, engineering manager at Meta. Alex has also held senior engineering roles at HSBC, Moo.com and a few smaller startups. He spent years setting up and leading dev teams, and in today's episode he is sharing his vision on how to build a high-performing engineering team. Enjoy the next 40 minutes and don't forget to subscribe to our channels wherever you're watching or listening.
Welcome to The Product Show. Insightful interviews with founders and tech leaders sharing how they hack product growth.
Hi Alex, great to have you here.
Hi, Desi.
I've been looking forward to this chat. Just for the listeners, we've known each other for probably a couple of decades. We have a mutual friend, and I know your career since you were a student and junior developer to now engineering manager at Facebook. But just tell us a little bit more about your story and what's been helping you to grow in your career step by step.
Yeah, definitely. So, where should I start? I started my career as a software engineer probably 15 years ago. So I've worked across different sectors and different companies, from startups to medium-sized companies to large organizations, and I've had the opportunity to work across different products as well. So I have spent some time on e-commerce, payments. I've done a little bit of compliance, and most recently I worked at HSBC and now at Meta. So during my career, I've been very much kind of invested in building products, solving problems for the end customers, but I also developed kind of really strong sense of helping teams and working with people. So I've shifted from engineering into engineering management and people management about 6 years ago, and I've been doing that through some of those companies.
Right, so engineering manager means different things to different people in different organizations, and I probably can find like a dozen of job descriptions for the same job title. So tell us a little bit more about your day-to-day and what do you do as an engineering manager at Meta?
Yeah, so that's a really great point there. So engineering management is a very kind of broad term, and there are generally a lot of different archetypes for people with different focus, and things might vary company by company. So specifically around Meta, what we do, we have generally two tracks for engineering managers, and one is organizational leader, and the other one is kind of tech lead manager. So for me personally, my focus is primarily probably in between those two. So I'm trying to work really closely with people, still remain really invested into kind of the end-to-end product. And the other thing is we're not hands-on. This is something specific around Meta, that our focus is primarily people, product, and career growth. We don't code, and that's really crucial. That's something I've had to do in previous roles in previous companies. But this is really giving us an opportunity to actually support our teams the best way we can. In terms of kind of my day-to-day responsibilities, as I mentioned, from one side, I'm trying to kind of set up career growth opportunities for the engineers, work closely with our cross-functional partners. So that means product, data, or user research, and try to bring the entire group together, as well as kind of setting up some of the internal processes and making sure that we work well as a kind of larger team.
Interesting. For me, as an outsider, one of the most important qualities of an engineering manager is the ability to speak two languages, to be a leader for your engineering team, but also to kind of effectively communicate with the people outside of your team, and especially non-technical stakeholders, and probably sometimes even acting as a translator between the two. So what are other key qualities of a high-performing engineering manager?
That's a great question. So you're right that on one, I would say there are three levels of communication that we need to be able to navigate, and you have different stakeholders with different mindset, different goals, and different folks as well. So more on kind of day-to-day with engineers, we need to be very kind of understand the technical jargon and kind of be able to reason about the projects and the tasks that people are doing on a day-to-day basis. Equally, we need to create, in collaboration with product and design, our vision and strategy for the team. So linking the technology and how technology fixes problems for the end customers and how we are supporting the product vision is really kind of key on kind of team level conversation and communication. From there, we have different partner teams that we worked. Some of those are closer to us, some of those are a bit further away in terms of alignment. So we need to bring and create the right forums for those teams to be able to connect, work together and deliver solutions end to end. And finally, I would say communication going upwards with our leadership. So we need to be very careful and be able to kind of condense the information from what's going on to the day-to-day and be able to communicate to leadership in a way that they understand what's the direction, do we need any support, where do they can jump and support our team to be better. This is just probably one part of it on communication. I think there are other really important bits for engineering manager that need to bring to work to our workplace. So one, from my point of view, is setting up very clear expectations for engineers. So then people can go and execute, do the right things without having needing much input from a manager or other partners. The other thing is providing timely and constructive feedback. This is really crucial because this helps us navigate and correct the course of what people are doing, but this goes two ways. So we are very open about feedback at Meta as a whole, as a company. It's part of our core culture, and it's not just giving and providing feedback to engineers, but also being able to receive feedback. So and that's the growth mindset. Growth mindset is the other thing which is important both for engineers and managers within Meta as well. So we're not perfect. We're all kind of growing our skills constantly, and that's something I'm trying to bring in my kind of day-to-day job. Trying to be very open, very vulnerable, and receive that feedback and work with that with engineers to make sure that my approach is right for them as well.
It's great that you mentioned the cross-team collaboration. It is like really one of the biggest challenges for larger organizations. According to LinkedIn, Meta's got over 9,000 developers. I don't know if that's correct. And I'm sure you also had a very large team at HSBC. To anyone finding it challenging to create the right team structure, especially from engineering point of view, what's your advice? What worked for you in terms of processes and practices, but also models in terms of how you can structure a team?
Yeah, so I guess an example from HSBC. So when I joined the company, back then we had 2 engineers, and we had to really quickly grow from that. In 2.5 years, we grew up to 3 cross-functional teams. So I guess one bit that's really important, I'm mentioning cross-functional teams. This is a great way to create really good culture within the team and make sure that the team is delivering end-to-end value. So what we've been trying to do is have engineers, designers, product all working as a core team across a big problem area. So they were owning the problem for start to end, and that whole team was responsible and accountable to deliver those end-to-end solutions. This is, I believe, really crucial on how people work, and this is something that we are trying to build in Meta as well. So for us, we have engineering, we have data, we have user research, design, and product, and all of those functions are really crucial to deliver quality product. And if they work really closely together, it's a great collaboration model, because you have individuals or groups of people that have different mindset and different look on the problems they're trying to solve. Now, if you put that group together, they can challenge their ideas, they can work on their ideas, and they can come up with something really tangible that's really solving a problem in a unique and sometimes innovative way that each of those functions in a silo would not be able to deliver that result. So in terms of operational models outside of the teams, I think it's really important to set up really clear working models across all teams. It's something I've seen in Meta and I've seen in other companies is teams are working sometimes in silos. They have their own goals, they deliver on those goals, until they reach the point where they realize they're doing same stuff as another team. Right. When that happens, you have normally a clash of which priority is more important, and that's the point where normally people escalate up the chain and they need to kind of find a way to resolve those conflicts. I think if you create the right models up front with the right partner teams around you, it's looking at roles and responsibilities, alignment, how do you share goals across board, metrics and data is also really crucial to make sure that people have that alignment and they establish those connections. So this is something that I've been doing in the previous company and I'm trying to do here at Meta. So definitely for anyone dealing in working in big organization, I would say invest in creating those relationships and working models across different teams.
Oh, excellent. What do you think is the ideal structure of a cross-functional team? Who are the players in this team?
That's a good question. So I probably mentioned a few of the functions. You should definitely have engineering, product design, and we have like user research as well as part of that, and data, right? Is our outcomes are very much data driven. So we have metrics. We are really trying to invest in those areas. So how the team decides who are the actual people involved, that could be quite flexible. But each of those individuals should be represented in the decision making of the process. So one other thing which is really important is finding the right balance, which is never an easy task of how much information should go into different levels. Because let's take engineering, for example. If you involve engineering in every single step of road mapping process, for example, you might the return on investment you get out of that process might not be as impactful or as big if you just involve them in the right times and right moments for them to deliver their ideas. So it's really important how you manage the communication so engineers can continue delivering their core function, so building the product from engineering point of view, but at the same time being involved in the process end to end. And just one thing to say, one process that I've been trying to kind of utilize from Agile is Three Amigos. Three Amigos is you normally have product, you have engineering and quality assurance QA talking about a problem, coming up with solutions and how they solve it. I've been trying to repurpose that for Meta and our team. So we are doing similar discussions where we have a product and decisions needs to be made. We have product design, engineering, and data as a core team, at least one representative of each of those functions to make those decisions and drive the projects forward.
Right. How do you measure the impact and the performance of your team? Unfortunately, how long someone spent on a task or lines of code is a vanity metric. It doesn't really measure impact. How do you make sure that your team is aligned with the overall business vision and objectives, and you can measure their contribution properly?
I think this is very much depends on the situation and the team, the maturity of the team. For, let's say, a well-established team where you have already a working product, it's already deployed to customers, you have clear metrics and understanding of the problem space. To some extent, you can purely focus on metrics in that area. And for Meta, such teams, they normally have like North Star metric. They have clear targets that they can use on measuring the impact of their outcomes. So they understand well what are their operational day-to-day metrics and the levers that are allowing them to push the product in one or another direction. For my team, I would say we are more relatively new within our space. We have a lot of ambiguity with what we're trying to solve. And that maturity is not there of the both product, of the technology, and the kind of data metrics framework we have at the moment. So that requires a lot more understand work. So I guess let me speak about, we have three goals at Meta normally that we use when we build our roadmaps and how we kind of try to measure impact for the teams. So we have understand goals that are allowing us to do a deep dive in an area, do user research, do engineering understand of the problem, and come up with a solution for that problem. Sometimes as part of that, we might run experiments to validate some hypothesis and so on. There is a ship goal. Ship goals are, we know we need to build a certain piece of functionality from engineering point of view. And normally these are very clearly understood problems and why we're doing it. So could be for improving operational operations within the different teams, or improving the underlying product that already exists, and we know we have migrations due to legal or compliance issues and so on. And then there are metric goals. Metric goals are with the maturity, like with the least amount of maturity, you start from understand. With the most amount of maturity, you are reaching these metric goals where you have clear idea how do you move the needle and how much you want to move the needle. For example, you can say reducing, let's say, bad content with 20% within a specific area. So these are the three main goals that we try to use. For engineers, there are, I would say, 3 or 4 kind of main axes that we use. For one is project impact, where we can clearly say what was the improvement, or what are the achievements, and we try to measure and assess throughout the process. We have engineering excellence, which is general improvements of our platforms. Sometimes those might be serious bugs that are affecting hundreds or thousands of customers and that are costing us millions of dollars, for example. And that could be a way to show the impact for the specific engineer or the business as well. And then we have two more, which are people and direction. So people is very much around how do you support other people? How do you collaborate with the rest of the company? And these are metrics that are not very clear, so it's not non-quantifiable metrics, but still we try to measure that through feedback. And again, back to the feedback culture, this is really important, so we have full visibility within the company. And finally, direction is setting up the direction for the team through road mapping, creating projects, or influencing other teams in the organization as a whole.
Wow. From your experience, what are some best practices for improving team performance? I mean, I've heard managers before using hackathons, code reviews, voting on team suggestions, and so on and so on. What has worked for you?
So I guess from the different things is like, from one side you have culture, and from the other side you have different rituals that are helping to either create that culture or support communication, collaboration within the team. From different, I would say, it's very important to create the right forums for the team to be able to communicate clearly within the team and externally as well. So we have regular show and tells where we do like product demos, or we do different learning sessions. People had learning sessions and they can present the outcomes and something that will impact or influence the entire team. Also, you mentioned hackathons. We do hackathons, fixathons on different levels within the team, within a broader organization, and that is really helping us to achieve some of those values I mentioned, engineering excellence, where we're trying to kind of keep up our platforms healthy and stable and to operate well. But what's also really important is using agile rituals like retrospectives, where we have continuous learning cycles to improve our processes, where people have the forums to contribute and tell us and like speak to each other as well to explain what's working, what's not working. So these rituals are really important because they create environment, highly trustworthy environment. It removes judgment and allows people to experiment and do things. And from there, it's like next step is empowering your team. So giving them opportunity to decide how to drive impact for the org and be in the driving seat. So this is very specific thing on about Meta, which I haven't seen anywhere else, even though I've been trying to create it in previous organizations. It's very much engineering driven, but it's not just that. It's our individual contributors, people on the ground, decide what projects to run and how to run those projects. I want to kind of steer away from engineering driven because that's very it isolates the rest of the groups, where in reality we have design, we have product, we have user research and engineering as well, driving projects very much bottoms up. So design so we are doing design sprints, ideas are coming up. Out of those, projects are being generated, and the whole group works together to deliver those projects. But people on the ground can decide where the impact is, can convince leadership, so people within the team to some extent, but also leadership, why do we want to invest in certain area? And we empower people to pivot on projects. If someone figures out there is no value to work on a certain area, they can completely change the whole direction of the project, as long as they can show what's the problem and why there's more, where's more impact for them to be delivered and how they plan to execute that. So empowering our people, creating trustworthy environment, and having those kind of shared values within the company and within the team are really important drivers for creating those highly performing teams.
Wow, that's a great example of trusting your people. Let's talk a bit about the people side of the job and your approach to managing tension within the team. Engineers are highly intelligent, very impact driven people. Many of them are introverts, they're usually very consumed by their work. Uh, but one of their common weaknesses, and of course I'm generalizing here, not everyone is the same, is their ability to effectively communicate with non-technical people. What's your advice here? Do you have any tips how we can manage this? And also, what's your experience with managing different personalities on the team?
So generally, we the environment, the area I worked in at the moment is very much with product generalists. That's what we call this set of software engineers and system generalists. The idea is these are product-minded individuals that have built end-to-end solutions, customer-facing products. So I would say there is that problem. I've seen it in the past. I've seen it in myself, where myself as an engineer, I was very much in the weeds in the day to day and focused on the technical problems, and sometimes forgetting about the end customer and what are we solving and why are we building it. And this is very important thing of trying to step back, look and understand the big picture. I think this is why we're trying to make sure that people are not working in silos. And we are trying to pair up, let's say, more junior people that might express those traits, and with some more senior people that will can help them and help them grow those qualities and abilities to understand the product and why we're building something. For us, every single project is starting with impact, and the impact is where we try to link that technical solution back to business value or customer value. So this is part of the culture to some extent, and this is really helping us to frame the problem. So we have documents that we normally write for each of the projects, and people are really encouraged. This is part of the communication of outwards. So people are writing one pagers or RFCs, request for comment, as they're also commonly known, where they explain what the problem is, what the goal is, what's the impact for the customer, and this is normally being shared with the wider group. So where people can comment and ask different questions and try to understand what's the value. So this is a great way to have communication, wider communication and understanding and alignment, and allows more junior people to grow and understand why they're building something. And it's not just for technical reasons, it's for delivering end customer value. Something else which is very well developed within Meta and is working really well is we have a lot of we have strong mentorship and mentoring culture within Meta. So that's happening on multiple different levels. I mentioned there we're trying to pair up senior and more junior engineers on teams, but also there is mentorship programs that are being run all over the Meta, different orgs, different parts, which are helping engineers to really grow different set of skills, whether those are technical, project management, career growth opportunities, and all of those things are being discussed with, let's say, individuals that have been within the company for few years and really can coach and mentor people to grow those abilities well through their career. Yeah.
Right. I don't think this is the case at Meta from what you've been describing, but unfortunately in many organizations, developers and engineers are often being treated as a tool executing other teams' ideas and visions. It's wrong, it's demoralizing, and it's also missed business opportunity because many engineers are actually highly creative people with strong business flair. What can we make sure that we avoid this? And I don't think, to be honest, this is done intentional. Maybe sometimes it's a matter of, how you have structured teams in your company, but especially for younger startups that are about to scale up their teams. What's your advice? How can we avoid this and make sure that engineers are active contributors to the process?
I would say probably there are different types of startups being led slightly differently. You have startups being started by highly technical people and understanding the problem purely from technical side, but not having that much investment in on the people side. But equally, you might have more product-minded people that are creating the startup, and that might be where the focus is. I think it's really important. And there are probably different stages for each company, each startup as well. So that's very important to look back and understand what stage you are, where do you need to invest, and how do you need to restructure your organization. And this is a continuous process. So dealing with a company with, let's say, 2 to 5 to 10 people is one thing. Now, once you start experiencing growth pains with, let's say, 30 people, people have to, or leaders within that company will need to start creating the right structure and the right communication channels, so to avoid those things. I've seen very much top-down structured organizations where what you describe is there is a task that needs to be delivered and goes down the levels, and each level is trying to keep, they're responsible for delivering the outcome, and they're keeping the next level down. So one level is accountable, the other level is responsible for delivering the outcome. And this is where you have the top-down culture, which creates those kind of silos or very much execution-led culture. And that stifles innovation, creativity, and it's very much creates that toxic culture generally, because people had, you need to deliver this by this time. And sometimes coming from banking and financial background, where it's highly regulated, sometimes probably the majority of your business needs to be executed in such way, because you are held as a whole company accountable to deliver and help your customers make sure they're safe, their funds are safe, and so on. Other environments, you have more flexibility. And I would say to some extent within Meta, we have a little bit more flexibility to change the approach where it's bottoms up. So doing it bottoms up means you need to assume that you don't have control of the process. And some people are really struggling with that idea. If you don't have the process, they think they won't be able to control the outcomes. Again, if you have clear direction, vision, trying to give some guidelines and guardrails for those teams to work within those guardrails, they can produce results, and good results aligned to the overall vision, and that allows them to organize and be flexible of how do they communicate on a lower level, and also having metric culture, data-driven culture is really important. Without that, you have no visibility. You don't know whether you're going the right direction or not, and you don't know when you need to kind of change direction for teams, orgs, and it's really difficult to navigate that environment. So data-driven is really important. Giving some flexibility and ownership for teams, especially how they organize and so on, is really important, because then they become owners of the final product and the outcomes as well.
As an engineering manager, I assume your role is much more about leadership and executing the vision rather than coding and developing anymore. So I'm just curious, how do you maintain the depth of your knowledge so you can stay confident you lead your team in the right direction?
So it's very important to figure out where I can have biggest impact for my team. For me, I am trying to extend a lot of trust in the engineers, that the people that are on the ground, that the people I work with, and I rely on their advice very much. So this is important because if I am coding and I am involved in the day-to-day operational execution part, I become automatically a bottleneck for the entire team. For us, like removing myself from the day-to-day and trying to focus on communication, on relationships, on, as you said, vision and strategy are probably one of the most important bits. But also I try to keep myself at least involved in some of the project discussions and some of the technical discussions. So I maintain some level of understanding of what the problems are and how I can best support those engineers. So, for example, during our hackathons, I'm getting involved with engineers. Even though I'm not coding, I'm still looking at their code. I'm trying to understand the solutions and how they're approaching it. I'm still, some of my kind of engineering skills from my past are still relevant, and as in terms of advice, that still applies to, let's say, probably not that much to a senior engineer, but more for junior engineers that are trying to figure out how to navigate the company and how to deliver more impact within our engineering excellence area. So these are the main ways I'm trying to kind of get involved in day-to-day activities to some extent, but not too much, because otherwise I'll lose focus on other more important bits and lose the bigger picture.
Right. So having the right people that you can trust is so important when building your team. What qualities are you looking for when hiring engineers for your team?
So we have really rigorous and well-established hiring process. Generally, how we hire is once a person has been hired within the company, we need to attract that person to want to join our team.
Love
So
it.
it's
Love
likely
it. That's how it should be everywhere.
it's for me it's a big game changer compared to any other previous company. I've been involved as a hiring manager doing the whole process from start to end. And normally what I've been looking for in people is, first, we always look for technical skills, right? That's important for an engineer. They need to cover the bar for the required role and for the required level. And this is similar to within Meta as well. So people are doing coding interviews, people are doing design interviews as part of the hiring process, but there are other interviews like culture or team fit, and then behavioral interviews, which are trying to figure out few things, looking at motivation, empathy, looking at ability to be proactive or proactive mindset. Also, this is getting things done, right? So can you unblock yourself and deliver on different outcomes? Having a growth mindset, thinking of how do you develop yourself, how do you develop your career, or any other outside activities that people are doing are really good, strong signal that they are trying to develop themselves in different ways. And communication as well. Communication is a great factor. It's as a social network, social company. For us, communication and visibility, transparency is super important, and that comes up in different ways in our day-to-day interactions and how we manage projects, how we deliver the projects, and so on. So I would say these are the top levels. We have different areas within those that we're trying to assess through our interview process. And I would say, from my experience being hired at Meta, it is, and now seeing it from the other side, it's very transparent. It's a very clear, structured, and we try to remove bias from our process through multiple different levels. having involved multiple different people involved in that process really helps to whittle out people that might we all experience bias in our conversations, but having different cultures, people from different backgrounds, nationalities, different underrepresented groups as well is really important, and that's part of our kind of whole end-to-end hiring pipeline and process.
That was a great chat. Thank you very much for your time, Alex. Before I let you go, what's your advice to young engineers who are just starting off their career? Where is the best place to learn?
Typically, yeah. I started my career working for small companies. I would say for new engineers, if they have opportunities to start their career as a startup, whether that's as a training or they start a role as a junior engineer, that's a great place to learn fast and develop skills fast. Startups are fast-paced environment. Very often you need to wear different hats and you need to solve problems that you probably won't face in a well-established big company. You have to do sometimes product, you need to be a designer, sometimes you need to work closely with marketing and other teams. So this is a great opportunity to learn fast, develop skills, and fix problems on the ground. And that would be my advice. Once they kind of establish and know that what they want to do, how they want to drive their career, they can take any path forward. But all of those skills they've acquired in a startup would be really beneficial and useful for them.
Interesting. Thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find you online?
I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. So if people want to reach out to me, I'm always open to talk about engineer manager or kind of problems and how people can navigate the space, or engineering purely career growth opportunities and so on. So yes, I'm happy to share links with you as well.
Perfect. Enjoy the rest of your day. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening, everyone. This podcast was brought to you by Pony. We spent our time designing the future of Web3. Check us out on pony.studio.